Go.
Hello. I guess, can I start talking now?
Yes.
Yes, here I am. Okay, hello, my name is Kelly Animal Birchfield. Thank you for joining us. Hey, we're going to be doing a little bit of lawn chair philosophy. And what that means is, well, we're going to use some art to explore the realm of ideas and concepts and what that even means to begin with. So I do have some teaching resources I've sent in the little chat box. Our website is www.lcpfoundation.org. Now we are building that site. We don't have much up there yet, but if you check on the LCP Academy, you'll see some philosophy for kids of all ages activities linked in there. And we'll have a teachers pay teachers site where all the lesson plans will be free. And this will be one of the first uploads that we have on there. So do bear with us, but we will eventually have plenty of content for you. I want to start off today asking you all, what is the world? What is the world? How do you know what the world is, especially given how big it is? My goodness, it's not as if we can travel through every crack and crevice, meet every person, every creature, see every molecule or large expanse of nature personally, but we have a sense of the whole world. How do we know that world? What is the world to you? Would anyone like to pop in and?
Yeah, I said by the elements.
Elements? Okay.
Earth, fire, air, and water.
Okay.
And I like Charlie's answer. She put that in the chat.
Okay.
People. Just like, I know, like interacting with different people and thinking about different cultures and like, yes, we can't meet go to every place, but depending on where you live, you can meet a lot of different people from a lot of different places.
Okay, so interacting with people, understanding elements.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think I was going to say energy, which I think is connected to both of those, the elements and people. I think energy, has a lot to do with just, how I look at the world and take in the world.
Yeah, okay, so energy might be connecting us together. It might lead us to these fundamental elements, which I guess maybe we want to explain elements. Something that's common and found in every single situation, like a stage, allowing us to interact and to exchange that energy. And this idea forms of the world as a whole. But what is an idea? What is an idea? Would anyone like to pop in?
I want to say it's a form of expression.
Okay. Okay.
In a way. When I'm thinking about the creative process, that's the first thing I think about.
It's something that's...
Yeah, I was going to say a thought or something that you are inspired by.
Yeah, okay. Common to those answers, there's something inside that needs to be expressed or shown or demonstrated outside. And many philosophers will say ideas are like, well, principles, which allow us to share and communicate. So it's something maybe which resembles that energy that allows us to share and express thoughts, ideas, maybe images, the imagination. Many philosophers also say that ideas, well, they're conflicting. We don't always have the same ideas. And if we have an idea of the whole world, oftentimes those ideas conflict. And sometimes those ideas conflict within as well. Not only do each of us have our own ideas that might conflict with each other, we have many ideas within causing conflict. And it's out of that conflict between the elements or our energy, which is going to constitute that idea of the world. So the first activity we're going to do today is draw the real world without drawing a globe or a map. Draw the real world. It'll take 5 minutes. I'll put this music back on while we think about that and draw. And I'll draw too. How are people doing with their real worlds?
Kind of getting lost here in it for a second.
Okay.
Yeah, I love that music.
Okay, a couple more minutes. how are they coming along? Do we need more time? I don't want to rush anybody.
I'm doing well with it. I think I'm ready.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay, what'd you come up with?
So it's sort of like a cycle where you see that there's all of the elements. You have earth, fire, air, and water. And then you have these lines that sort of connect all of these elements. And then below it, you have like creatures. You have a creature above and below. And it's sort of this like cycle of life, kind of with the people sort of stemming from the elements and digging into the soil and rotating around.
Okay, I like that. All right, Charlie, what'd you come up with?
I feel like it's very similar. I was thinking about how like instead of actual people, I think that I'm very spiritual, thinking about how like the earth represents people and represents like growth and change, and then like all these different type of typography trying to kind of come together. So like mountains, desert, caves, things like that, and all that coming together to kind of represent different parts of the earth.
Okay, yeah, I like that. You both are way more artistically inclined, at least through drawing than I am. I guess I've got pointy. Mine was more feeling based. I've got pointy. I guess that looks like grass. Maybe that's water coming down. Then there's like angry lightning coming from the sky and lots of swirly lines. And then a smiley face and a happy face. And I don't know, I guess that's energy below. And it's all kind of connected. I don't know. But what about all of our drawings makes it real? What makes something real? What makes those worlds specifically real?
I think because it has identifying elements. Like you can see it, it represents something that is familiar to all of us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Familiar, feeling.
Like it's sort of symbolic of things, and symbolic of maybe memories that we've had, interactions that we've had, or even experiences that we haven't had but other people have told us about.
Okay, yeah, our stories, our memory, things that connect us that are tangible in a way that are very visceral. Maybe we can say that reality is very visceral. Now, there's a different concept or idea of world swirling about within, and that's the ideal world. That's very different from the real world. But what do we mean, first and foremost, by ideal? What do we think of when we hear that word, ideal?
Let's say as perfect as it can be.
As perfect as it can be? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think what we would like it to be.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. And many philosophers would agree with you and add, how things ought to be, or the best way that things could be. Well, some philosophers say that this is the best way things could be, but I believe in progress and I think things could be better. But each one of us has our own ideal or idea of how things ought to be, an ideal world, the best case scenario, if you will. So now let's reflect and draw an ideal world without drawing a globe or a map. I'll put this back on. And I guess let me know when you're done so I don't interrupt the process.
All right.
Ooh, okay. What you got for Sarah?
So, ideal worlds for me are bright. So I have this sunset, and then below the sunset, I have this circle with all of these different words: diversity, love, unity, inclusion, acceptance, balance, and peace. And these are all of the words that I think about in a perfect, ideal world.
No.
And there's a fist, like we'll be powerful if we have all of those things. Yeah.
I like it. Charlie, what's going on in your ideal world?
For mine, I thought about an ideal world, an ideal world, everybody would have what they needed, like those basic things that we think everyone has, but everyone doesn't. So food, shelter, water, protection, but also what I've included in that is people having the right to their spiritual and traditional practices, the right to preserving indigenous languages, things like that, that in an ideal world that I would hope would happen, maybe in the future soon, and that people aren't, that assimilation is not something that has to occur.
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
I love that, Charlie.
Yeah. Both of you had very like heavy but uplifting and very detailed ideal worlds there. I just have people with smiley faces, and they're all connected. So I guess I'm picking up on that concept of unity and love. There's music notes, and I represented that life water. I guess everyone connected in the flow, whatever that means. And in it, everyone's doing what it is that they're supposed to be doing, and no hate. There's peace and acceptance and all that stuff. So I think we've got a pretty clear idea of what makes an ideal world, even though ours are kind of different. There are many similarities there. But the concept of the ideal world and the real world are in conflict. They are not the same, and they are fighting for a seat to define the whole world in our heads. So if we have, I don't know, we've got the idea of the whole world, we have competing for that definition, the ideal and the real. So for our next little exercise, we're going to draw the real world and the ideal world in a fight. So that is the next thing, and let me know when you're done. I'll turn off this music. last little bits. Oh, my foot is asleep. Ugh. Okay. Who is ready? Okay.
I guess I can go. So mine was about the two kind of being in conflict. I thought about being on fire, thinking and what that means. That means a lot of death, mourning, but I think that also could mean renewal and a start. Because they are just like so much in conflict with one another that there seems to be no way for them to work at the same time.
I like it. This element of strife, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, just a destructive thing. What do you got for us, Sarah?
So what I had here, I have the lightning bolts. I have these X marks, and I love palmistry. So anytime you see a symbol of like an X, depending on the mount it's on, it means something different. So on this mount, it's actually the space between, and trying to, fight for that space between these two. And in this case, I did something similar as Charlie, and this space is causing friction and it's creating fire. So the fire is, there's a tree that's burning, there's like some of the architecture that's burning, but then there's still the ray of light. Like the ray of light is untouched. And despite the fact that there is fire, that there are X's, light will still shine. There will still be a new day. And that's sort of the undertone that I wanted to just share in this.
Okay, yeah. That light will lead to a path. I have elements of both in here. We've got our life flow force, but it's cut off with this like anger. That's what those red jaggy lines represent. And we're underneath the ground instead of well grounded, and our people are not unified. They're cut off from each other, and they're very angry. And any sort of flow or interconnection or any shared ideas are disrupted and cut off, and it's very confusing. But elements of both are there. But I love how both of you, acknowledge that the strife is in a way necessary and could lead to harmony between the two, and that it's through this destruction, or at least this destruction is motivating. It's a motivating force, which can allow for harmony. So before we talk about how it is they can come together in harmony, let's draw them in harmony, the real world and the ideal world together in harmony and peace. What that looks like. Okay, go. All right. Are we ready to go?
Yeah, I can start first. So using the same piece of paper, I took all of the X's that I created and I turned them into flowers. So what was a symbol of strife and conflict has now become like fertility and growth, and rebirth.
I like it.
Yeah.
Transformative.
Yeah.
Yeah. Charlie, what's going on in your world of harmony?
So for mine, I thought about something that could exist at the same time, which is that can have kind of two definitions or ideas, like water, because we often think of water as something that's flowing and things, but then I think of the destruction of water, particularly thinking about not only that it's turbulent, but the way that water has carried certain bodies to different parts of the world as labor, and how that could be that molecular memory for those people can have a totally different understanding. So the water can occur at the same time. It could be a calming thing. It could be something that could end the destruction, but it also can be a destructive factor. So the way that water works together is what I thought about with that harmony of the ideal versus the real might look like.
Yeah. Well, I like that simultaneity. And that's what we want to strive for in this whole concept of the world, is being able to hold space for both and recognize both and how they interact. So I drew elements of both, but more in a harmonious way. My people are unified again and well grounded. All feelings are accounted for, both happiness and sadness. But they're surrounded by a heart. So we can love our many feelings and many aspects of life and accept that, and I have little ideas floating about in my life water, representing multiplicity, and connection. This sky is not necessarily raining down angry lightning bolts, but we've got this flow of the intellectual realm that's well connected with the ground and allowing for the flow of ideas and energy and elements and whatever else it is that we're exchanging. We can, just there's a healthy cycle of communication, I guess, is where I think the two in harmony can go. How do we get there? This is where more of the discussion part comes in. Not that we haven't been discussing this whole time, but I don't have an art project for the how of it.
I think this is a really amazing concept to think about. And, how do we get there? I could see so many different ideas for lessons born out of this right now. But yeah, for one thing, if you think about how do we get there, there needs to be some sort of change. There needs to be proactivity. People taking a stance, people speaking, people who are not afraid to be uncomfortable. Because if we talk about the things that make us uncomfortable and we voice that and we put those voices on a pedestal, then change will happen. Maybe not as quickly as we hope, but with consistency and community and passion, a lot could happen.
Yeah.
I was thinking about you said the speaking. I was just thinking about something. A friend of mine, she was just talking about. She has to go back to work to teach at college, and she has a chronic illness, chronic pain, and so she's obviously worried about going back to teach in the classroom and stuff, and she was just talking about like how she felt like that combined with when she goes out, people are not wearing masks, people are just like having birthday parties and she's just like, people are just not listening And I think about that and how like, and she was telling me that like we need to listen to each other more. And I think that's important because everybody can, well, not everyone can speak, but a lot of people can speak, and we're kind of talking over one another, and there's not a space for an actual real dialogue to happen, for anything constructive to happen. So I like that when you were talking about people being able to speak, and I think about like we need to also listen to other people, because other people have great ideas that could help us get to that point of maybe harmony of that ideal world where we couldn't otherwise.
Yeah. I personally think that on an individual level, we can actualize our ideal worlds by living with a sense of purpose, by having that ideal or how we think things ought to be determine our actions, and to be authentic and to live by that and be principled. But I think when so many people have different ideals and they conflict, we almost are fighting over reality. So what do you do when you come across someone who has such a vastly different conception of what an ideal world should look like? Especially if it's built upon hate and the squashing of other people's ideals, or even just right to exist to begin with. Like, how do we deal with that?
Personally, I don't organize with those people. That's I have no use for working with people who want me dead. Like maybe that's just not me. Maybe I haven't reached my higher self yet for that. But that's just, I just don't. For me personally, I think putting my energy more towards not necessarily people who have the same ideas, but at least acknowledge my humanity and others like me, and I acknowledge other people's humanity. I think that's more important to organize and work with and work towards than to dwell on people who I can't change their mind. Like most people are kind of set where they want to be. So like the whole idea of like, oh, if you just educate somebody, then they won't be this, that doesn't really work. Most people, they have to be at a point where they want to come to that. That's not going to just happen with you giving them articles about this thing or, respectability or anything like that. So I instead would rather focus on people who are at that place of wanting to learn and at those places that I can learn from. And,
knowing how to identify those people too, right? Like, yeah.
Those type of people confuse their idea of their ideal world with the real world, and in the way that their ideal relates to the real is they impose their ideal instead of coming to some sort of harmony, like we three have done our project, and using that conflict to come towards some sort of natural progression. It's just subjection and imposition. And Charlie, I think you have a great point, and maybe just not even interacting with those people. Maybe that's the way, just to build an intentional community where we can empower each other and just be a powerful force that can't be imposed upon.
Yeah, I had a friend, we were talking about that, and he really helped me see that, because he was just like, you don't have to spend your life being angry at other people you can be angry at the system situation, but like being angry at other people and feeling like you have to do all this labor to get them on your side or whatever. Why not just work with those who want to work with you, who want to imagine a more ideal world? Like, even though we all three had different concepts of that, we were still able to work together. That wasn't, like that can happen. There can be difference in that. And that's made my life a lot better. My blood pressure has gone down because I'm not arguing with internet trolls. And so it's just, I've kind of gotten to that place. It's like, I don't, Now I might troll them, but I'm not gonna. I'm like invest my energy in that when there's my community needs me in other ways.
Charlie, thank you for sharing that with us. I feel like you saying that has resonated with me tremendously. I think it could resonate with a lot of people right now because there's so much truth behind what you're saying. If people are ready, then they will want to learn. So how do you know someone is ready? And I think that's something that we're all trying to figure out. And I truthfully don't think those people who are in that fixed mindset, who are unable to step outside of what is comfortable and what they've known their whole life, I think they're unable to do that because they've gained no experience or exposure or have lived through anything certain people have lived through. And until something similar happens to them, there's a high chance that things will never change. And the acceptance of that is so hard. It is so hard. It makes me vivid. It makes me livid. Like, if anything, I think what we're all trying to do is trying to find people, the communities that are ready to listen. And the energy does need to be focused on them.
I think that's important for many philosophers to hear. I think the ideal philosopher would be one who is ready to listen and who can hold many ideas simultaneously and who wants to create a community of open communication and support and empowerment. But so often in the academy and the traditional philosopher, at least in the Western tradition, is a very oppositional person who will cling to their idea and who uses logic to critique and find faults in everything, and it creates a very hostile environment. And philosophy is what we need to help open minds. But if the philosophers are the closed-minded ones, how on earth can we be a good example for those who are stuck and maybe deep down don't want to be, or what have you? I don't know. So I very much appreciate what you all have to say, and I hope we philosophers
Yes.
learn from that.
Charlie, I have a question. How would you adapt this to the classroom? Some of the concepts that have been discussed.
Oh yes, I'm already just thinking about my lesson that I have to teach in like an hour.
Right? I'm so inspired by this.
I mean, this is definitely one of those things. Not that I don't think I could adapt it to younger kids, but I would definitely like to see my older students do something like this because I know a lot of them oftentimes feel powerless and hopeless, and they just feel like, okay, well, this just has to happen because I'm not of voting age. And it's like, that's not the only way to make change happen. So like I think definitely like the drawing activities, I thought that was really interesting. But then I think about some of my students who may not feel like they're artists or can to do that. So how else could I do that? Maybe like they could search for images. Maybe they could,
a collage, a virtual collage.
Yeah,
you could reference my stick figures. It's okay.
They can do that too. But some of them they won't even do that. They won't even. They're thinking pictures are really tiny in the middle of their picture, and we're working on that. So my usual thing for that is you get a little piece of paper until you learn how to use the whole paper. But I think about like what would you imagine the world to be like, particularly as I'm a millennial, so I'm like this. What's happening in the world is going to affect me, but it's really going to affect my students who are Generation Z. So how would you like this world to be? Like, what are things that you think that are important to get to that place? And it doesn't have to be realistic or in reality of what we know. Why couldn't that exist? Why couldn't that happen? Why, how it works now, why is that the only way? And so kind of how having them kind of interrogate that, because they already kind of do that, but not, I don't think sometimes they know how to organize that thought process to think, or put that down, especially on paper. And then mean, I would be even interested in people who do it like word collages or something like that with that, because I think sometimes I'm like, I don't have a symbol or picture for that yet, but I have all these words I'd like to put together. And I think about like, those word clouds you can do on Poll Everywhere. So that would, I think things like that would be really interesting to do with, especially maybe my middle schoolers, is because they're really, I know a lot of them are having a lot of trouble just it's a lot going on right now. It's a lot going on right now. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I tell them all the time, I'm like, I don't know what's going on right now. So we're all in it together.
It's like how to be powerful when you feel powerless. I feel like that could be a really good opener to the lesson. And all of those different resources that you mentioned can make them feel maybe a little more confident in their approach to this. And Kelly's drawing activity gives you so much insight into your students, their socioeconomic situation, because one ideal situation for one student looks totally different to another student.
That makes me, when I was talking to my sixth graders we were talking about the French Revolution, and we were talking about Rococo art, and they, I was trying to give them a context of why that was happening. I was like, so imagine you go in the grocery store today and your bread is, I'm like, I don't buy bread, so I can't remember. I was like, I think it's like $2 maybe now. But what if you go in tomorrow and it's like $400 or $4,000? And I had one student like, well, why wouldn't that be? I mean, if that was the cost, that's just the cost. And then other students were like,
yeah.
So there was like this big gap between, and I don't know if it was just because that student was pretty well off, but I also don't know if it was just because they were sixth grade. They don't go that person doesn't have to go grocery shopping, whereas maybe another student is having to do that for their family, and because I had a lot of students that obviously would come in hungry, and so I think about like just like even that just in that little conversation, the difference between what's one person thinks. I don't know if it was like one kid could have just like, well, I don't know, bread costs 2 pennies because that's what they just they think money is infinite. I mean, I guess it technically is, but it could be. Who says it has to just not be?
Right? Like Bitcoin. Where is it?
And so just like I mean, that's something I've been trying to challenge with my own parents. It's like, why do things have to cost a thing the way they do? Who said that they have to? Who said that anything has to cost anything?
It's true.
Take it up.
So having that kind of conversation with my students has been interesting to see, the bounds of their creativity and imagination. Not only just art, but like really the world.
So powerful. It really is. Kelly, or Animal Birchfield, I love the fact that I can call you that.
I'm a beast on the drums, that's why.
Yeah, I seriously love it. Are there any final thoughts that you want to share with the instructors that I will be sharing this with, as well as any of the people in our community who are watching? Because I do feel like these conversations need to be heard. So this will be shared, and I want to hear some of your final thoughts about this activity and some of these ideas that we've shared today.
Well, number one, thank you for your ideas and for sharing. Every time I do this, it's enriching to gain new perspectives, and especially for your artistic skills. You were able to express in more detail these ideas, which is great to see. And I think for teaching, and this is something that I want to do more with my students, is to ask them next, how much of yourself is inputting with these ideas of reality and ideality? Is this your parents telling you what's ideal, or is that coming from you, or is this an authoritative figure, or is this where did you get this idea from, instead of it just being this ethereal, oh, it's an idea and it's there, so what is it? And so ask your students to reflect on where those ideas came from, and whether they can change.
And having ideas that are different than your parents isn't a bad thing.
No.
It's not a bad thing. You can
It's
think
not.
differently.
Makes great family conversations during holiday dinners, but
It does, and I think it's worth having. And I think, you know, just because you were raised by these, you know, these people that you respect, you can respect each other's opinions, even if they're different.
Yeah.
You can. I love it. Well,
That's all I
thank
have
you
to say.
so much, Animal Birchfield, in your
Yeah.
infinite wisdom, for doing this with me. It was a small group, but this group, I think we tackled more in this time frame. And you've left every listener. I will give you the feedback from this video, and yeah, it will truly make an impact, I'm sure.
I hope so. And yes, adapt it to your situation and change it. Use it however you see fit.
We really do thank you for being here today. Charlie, any last things? I'm so happy you came. I hope you got something out of it.
oh, I did. I think that kind of sums it up. This is really, I really enjoyed it because I think sometimes, especially as educators, we don't really get to do our own practice a lot because we're so busy helping develop other artists' practice and all the other things that come with being a teacher. So that was really nice to just kind of take some time out of the day before my day starts. I know this is pretty late, before my day starts, to like kind of focus on myself. And I think this would be a great way, maybe not the first day of class, but maybe during that like first couple of weeks to kind of maybe build and find a way to build community with students with an activity like this.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Cool. Well, thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun. And I'm glad you enjoyed the music.
Good. I'm gonna use that one.